Just like that at 7:30. Can you believe it? We're here back this week. This is amazing to have another special guest. And if we have not personally met before, my name is Noreen Savage, and you might wonder why I'm doing these Zooms. And I'll just tell you a very short story. Back in May of 2019, my friend Lori posted on her Facebook page that she had lost 57 pounds. And it was by using a program called Brightline Eating. If anybody was interested, just go ahead and private message her. So I quickly went and private messaged her and proceeded to have this conversation that was the bright line, the 4 bright lines: no sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, and weighed and measured portion. And to all that, I thought, no way. There's absolutely no way I can do anything that extreme. And but I really like Lori, and we proceeded to go have lunch soon after that conversation. And even through the lunch, she talked more about the program and her success. She had never even read the book. She just went by a chart, and her friend had posted at a year. So that's how she found out about it. And I thought about it, and I thought, no way. But a couple weeks later, as the pain in my feet and my knee and my back and the worry of whether I would wake up in the morning some nights, not to mention all the guilt of trying, it finally wore on me, and I decided to give this a try. And I made a promise to myself that if I lasted 1 year doing Brightline Eating, that I would do what Lori did. I would post on Facebook, on my private Facebook page, and I would help whoever I could. And just before that time, I'm a Christian, and I just felt that God spoke to me and said, you can do more than that. You could have some Zoom chats and invite your friends and let them hear these great stories of the people that I personally have followed over the past year just during the Brightline community. especially We Eat Bright with Lines, but there's now Brightline Newbies, the Brightline official group. There are many, the recipes group, so many great online Facebook pages that you don't have to do this alone. So that is how I met Amanda Towne. And today I am so thrilled to have Amanda with me to talk about her story. And I know that you will be inspired too. So without further ado, Amanda, where are you? If you would unmute yourself. And before I forget, if anybody's new to this is being recorded. So I believe I did that right. And if you have a question for Amanda or for me, just put it in the chat, which should be at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to get to it by the end of the evening. But without any further ado, please help me welcome Amanda Towne. Amanda.
Hey. Hi, everyone.
So happy that you're here. And you and I talked the other day, just briefly. Well, we laughed half the time. But
we did.
We talked, and to just get to know each other because we've had an online presence. And this is so awesome to see you, to hear your voice. And, I've got a few questions. You may have seen what I put up there with the slideshow with your permission. Great. But I was, creeping on your Instagram where everybody follow Amanda at, what is it, at Amanda?
Amanda Brightlines. Yep.
Okay. And let's go back to before you started Brightline Eating. Where were you? What year was that? Was this 2 years ago?
2019.
Okay, last year. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been just about 20 months on Brightline Eating.
So how are you feeling about your, I don't want to say dieting, but just how are you feeling about life, and about yourself?
Well, I mean, I've always said it wasn't a matter of not thinking that I'm fantastic. I'm funny and smart, and yes. My husband says I'm beautiful all the time, and my kids love me, and I have amazing friends, and
yes.
that wasn't the issue. But when it came to weight loss, the only word to describe it is helpless and hopeless. I just thought I am never, ever going to get this under control. I am never, ever going to have victory in this area of my life. I am never, ever going to see success in losing weight and keeping it off.
Like, when did you start dieting? As a child, as an adult?
I mean, I can remember one diet I went on as a teenager. I mean, as a teenager too, you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat salad, whatever, and then you don't.
Right, you're 89 pounds.
Right, but I was never that small. I was always tall for my age. I was taller than all the boys until junior high. Big feet, the whole thing. But I was a pretty normal sized person until I had kids. And you and I talked a little bit. Our first child died 2 hours after she was born. And that, I have to think that played into it, but I did lose most of the weight, but we got pregnant again very quickly. And so I had 2 babies within 1 calendar year.
Wow.
And my son was born in 96, and we had another baby in March of 98, and then we had another baby in 2000, and I just kept gaining weight.
Yeah.
And then for the last 20 years, I've gone up and down, and maybe down a little bit, and then way up, and then it's just been. I would have to say that.
So what was the struggle then?
If I wasn't actively losing weight, I was gaining weight.
Okay. Was there like the food chatter? Do you feel at this point, looking back, are you a food addict? Do you call yourself?
Oh, I 100% believe that I am. It was something though that I didn't even really realize probably until the spring of 2018. I was listening. We talk about like different diets you do, whatever. Yeah. I had done 10 Whole30s in the span of about 6 years, which is, if you look at that, that's 300 days of no sugar, no grains, but could not string 2 of those together. And I was listening to a podcast by a paleo influencer, and she and her friend were talking about their binge eating passed, and they were, as they described the different things they would do as binge eaters, I was like, oh God, oh my gosh, that's me. And that was literally I mean, I knew I had no self-control when it came to food. I knew I would bounce between the sweet and the salty and the back and forth and the snack and always looking for the next snack. But that was the first time it ever occurred to me that I was a binge eater. And I didn't really do a lot with that information right then. And I think probably maybe tried another Whole30. You know, my friend and I would joke, especially if you had, once I had done a few of them, and then you would try and like, I'll start over next week and all of that. You know, we used to joke that I couldn't do a whole 30 minutes. You know, it was rough. And then the next year was when I heard about Brightline Eating. And I think I was ready for it when I heard about it.
So what sold you on Brightline Eating? I mean, did you just read the book, or what did you do?
Yeah. I mean, I told you I heard a local talk radio show host. The guy's his name is Matt Allen. You can find his Matt Allen Uncut podcast on iTunes. And he did an interview with Susan Pierce Thompson in February of 2019, I guess. And he had been losing weight. He was like a big guy, and you know, he's on the radio, so you can't can't see him. And he went on Facebook and said, people have been asking me how I lost weight, and this is how. And I interviewed the author of this book. My wife and I have done the book. I've lost 120 pounds, and I couldn't get to my podcast app fast enough. And I listened to it, and it was like she had been spying on me for 20 years.
That's right, how I felt when
watching me, you know,
wasn't there just this realization? And for those who have not read the book yet, I really strongly recommend that you do. I know, as I said, my friend Lori had not read the book. I don't think she still has. She's a lot smarter than I. In case you're there, Lori. But I read the first 5 chapters, and I've said this before. I was reading it quietly in my room. I shut the book and I said to myself out loud, I'm going to get thin. Like, it was like she had read my mind, and it all came together. The science was just there. And that's how I felt about it. I actually did shut the book and then did use a chart for a couple months.
Yeah, I read the whole book before I started the 14-day challenge, cover to cover. And I don't know that I had quite your confidence, but the overwhelming feeling to me was this realization that I was not just a bad person.
Right.
I was not just a bad person who was a loser and couldn't lose weight and, you know, couldn't stop binging on food. It like, were those bad habits? Yeah, absolutely. But I was constantly feeding my brain things that reinforced that addiction.
Yeah.
So of course I couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So what,
you know,
so what was the easiest or hardest part about getting started? Or did you find it not hard at all? I mean,
well, I mean, there were certain things like I had to say to my husband, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try another wacky, like this is going to seem extreme. And I had to sit down with him and kind of say, this is why I feel like I need to try this. And so things are really going to change around here. I have, 3 adult children, so they're kind of on their own. They do their little grocery shopping. I said, I'm not buying anything that I can't eat. If it doesn't go in mom's mouth, it doesn't go in mom's grocery carriage. So that was a little hard because he was just kind of like, great, you know.
You know, and I got to share, I don't think I told you this, but I did it secretly for 3 weeks, which my husband's the cook, really, at the house. But we also have other adults here and grandkids. So I just like secretly did this for 3 weeks for the opposite reason, because I just could not tell anybody. I did not fail publicly one more time.
Right. Well, I didn't. It wasn't like I made some big announcement on Facebook. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my sister. And that was exactly the reason, that if I fail at this, I just don't even want it. But I did get together with friends and talked about it at work with my girlfriends. And, so I was telling people that I was doing it, mostly because they were people that saw me like packing my lunches or saying no to the candy bowl at work, or, those things that I had to go, no, I'm not eating that now. I'm not eating that now.
Wow.
So that was, but my mom and my sister were like, oh, are you doing another Whole30? And I was like, I'm just eating the food I brought. Don't you worry.
It's best
And
not
it took
to
a long
make a
time
big
before
deal, right? It's best not
felt
to
like
make
a big deal. It
Right.
felt like a big deal. It was life changing.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember at work, I have a boss who we have, it was a farm market every week during the summer. And I would receive a cookie, as my other colleagues would. And one day I said, well, I'm doing something different. And I just said, thanks, but no. And then the next week, thanks, but no. Thanks, but no. I did this all through the summer because the person was graciously still offering it to me.
yeah.
But I just had to just get used to saying thanks, but no, I'm just going to pass.
Yeah.
And I'd have these huge lunches because I'd have my Brightline Eating lunch. I don't think anybody would think I'm dieting.
We had a joke at my my previous job. I worked with this young girl, and she was fantastic. And she would be like, "That's like a pound of slaw." Yes,
it is.
It is actually a pound of slaw. I'll be here for a while. Don't wait for me.
I think that is so true. I think at one point, though, you said that you're a baker, right?
I have friends on this call right now who I was the cookie lady. The cookie lady. And I baked for everything. My daughter and I would bake over 200 dozen cookies every Christmas, give them out as gifts. I mean, it was just something that was so ingrained as a part of my identity. And that was a whole grieving process to let go of that and say goodbye to that, because I couldn't. When I started, I didn't bake anything Brightline Eating. I could not. It was 7 months, almost 6.5 months before I baked anything. And it was only because it was my son's birthday.
Wow.
And he wanted a particular thing for his birthday. And it was, I'm not going to say I white knuckled my way through it, because I was almost to maintenance at that point. I got to maintenance. I started maintenance 8 months into my journey, and I hit goal weight after 10 months. And this was like 6.5 months. So, but I was just scared. Like, can I do this? Can I do this without eating it? Because that was a big part of it. Like, I made it, now I deserve it.
Right.
And so that was a really big part. And it was over a year before I baked something and went, oh, this was just fun. I just baked, and I liked, I enjoyed it, and I didn't feel like I had to have any, and I was okay with it. That took over a year.
So now are you baking regularly?
No, I mean, I'll bake little
Brightline
Brightline Eating stuff, but no, I mean, it's like if one of my kids has a birthday, or like Thanksgiving is coming up, there's a particular dessert that they only get on holidays. So
yeah.
I'll make that. I made it last Thanksgiving, so we'll do that. But I've tried to get them a little more involved. Like, well, if you want this, you're gonna have to come in the kitchen and help mom, because then I'm not, a lot of like rinsing off spoons and bowls as soon as I'm done, just to take away the temptation. I would say there's not really a chance that I'm going to lick the spoon. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to eat it. That's a hard line. But why torture myself more than I have to?
Well, and I found the hard way that for a newcomer, a BLT is considered a bite, lick, or taste.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are really abstaining between meals, if you're going to have a couple more nuts or a little bit of peanut butter or whatever it is, there is the brain thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take for you to have some peace of mind that you were, I'm not going to say broken free from what you said as food addiction, but how long did you feel that it took you? Were you either feeling automatic or just?
That I have to be honest, it didn't take too long. The fact was, as great as my life is, we're so blessed, but I went to bed every single night beating myself up, hating myself. Why can't I get control of this? Feeling my stomach, not being able to sleep on my right side because I would have reflux, like all of these different things. And literally from the very first day, I went to sleep that night with complete peace of mind. I had stuck to my lines. I had eaten exactly what I had written down, and I didn't have to be upset with myself. Now, the automaticity took a little longer. Like, I mean, at first it felt like all I did was think about food. All I did was plan food, think about food, plan meals, weigh my food, go grocery shopping, think about food. It took a while for it to become automatic, to kind of memorize the plan and, you know, have looked up enough questions so that I didn't have to keep looking things up. But it happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you know, and then once you start seeing some success, not only with the scale going down, I was actually just looking, excuse me, I lost like 8 pounds during the 14-day challenge.
Oh, you did go on the 14-day challenge.
I did. Yeah. No, I
Okay.
read the book. I signed up for the 14-day challenge and did that starting March 26th, 2019.
And would you suggest that as a great way to start?
I thought it was, yeah, it reinforced everything I had read in the book. I don't think anything takes the place of the book. Get the book, read the book, highlight the book, really. But the 14-day challenge really reinforced the things that I had read. The videos every day were great because I would get up and make my breakfast and I would pop on the video of the day and watch it while I ate. There were printouts that came with it that, you know, I could have them stuck to my fridge. I had them in my notebook so that I could, you know, just reference them very easily instead of having to flip through the book. So I think it was well worth it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it is. I just never got my act together to do it. So I have a question that I'm going to throw at you from someone here. Amanda, when you just said, think about your food all the time, do you still weigh your meals even if you know what they look like? I'm not sure what that means.
Okay. Hey, Becca, how are you, honey? She's one of my friends on Instagram.
Okay.
She's awesome. And I do still weigh my food. Absolutely. I'm a terrible estimator. I can't look at a crowd of people and tell you how many are in it. I can't look at somebody and tell you how much they weigh. I can't look at my food and figure out how many ounces it is. I weigh it. That number on the scale, I always look at it. It's not about deprivation. It's not about making not allowing myself to have things. It's so that my brain sees that number and goes, oh, that's enough.
Right. And you know what's kind of interesting? Yesterday I had tomato soup and then a salad for dinner. And my husband's the cook, really. And he'll hear me say I'm going to have a 1-plate meal, which for someone new means you are guesstimating it. You don't have a scale and you're maybe at someone's house, at a restaurant, whatever. And so you're calling it a 1-plate meal. He says, just make it a 1-plate meal. And I'm like, you know, I'm not worried about the vegetables, but I am going to weigh the protein, not because I can't guess, but because it gives me peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that ring a bell?
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just, once I see that number, then I can go, I know this is enough food. And let me tell you, there are still days when I have to convince myself, like, you don't need to add any extra. It's going to be fine. This is enough.
Right.
But when you weigh it, then you know. And I really, really try not to estimate. I don't even do a lot of 1-plate meals. I pack my food almost, like I was on the slide. I went to 3 weddings this fall. I packed my food for all 3 of them.
I couldn't believe that when you said that.
Yeah.
So how did that work out?
Well, obviously,
would you eat in the car?
No. I mean, obviously, this is COVID, so it's a weird time. So all of them were outdoors. Like a friend of mine got married. She had like a barbecue food truck, and she said, you know, she was like, "What can I get you? What can we?" And I said, don't worry about it. Like, it's not a big deal. I made my own pulled pork with my own sugar-free spices, and I brought that, and everyone else is kind of eating out of almost to-go containers. So I had my little Tupperware. You know, the other weddings that I went to were catered, and I just had my, hey honey, go to the car and get my cooler. And he would bring out, and it was really funny because my friends were like, you're going to eat all of that? That's all your food. And I was like, everybody keep your hands to yourself. This is mine.
This is
So,
true.
and I did, and it's so much more peace of mind. We went to dinner at a friend's house the other night, and my friend, she's fantastic. She's such a hospitable woman, and she was like, "What can I make?" And I was like, let me just bring my own food. It's so much more peace of mind to know I weighed it. I don't have to bring a scale with me.
Yes.
And I just dumped it out on a plate and microwaved it, and everyone, they ate their stuff and I ate mine, and it was fine. And I've just had to become comfortable with that, because it is
Right.
so much easier than like, oh my gosh, what's going to be there? I mean, I think back before Brightline Eating, and why I didn't know I had an issue with food is beyond me. But like thinking about like potlucks, when you, I mean, this was what would go through my head. Like, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring this food that I like, and I better make sure that I get some. And oh, what if other people eat it first and I don't get enough? And oh, look at that dessert. Maybe I should take some now. I wonder if they'll notice if I go get more. Oh, I really want to go get thirds. I'll just say it's for the kids, but it's really for me. I mean,
Oh my
and
gosh, you are
and
really speaking my language here.
and so, I don't want to go anywhere where I'm going to go, I wonder what they're going to have. Is there going to be something that I can actually eat? Do I have to, am I not going to get enough? Am I going to be hungry later? Am I going to, it's
Oh, and
just easier.
just the nonsense in your head of like, even at work, and I have a workroom close by, and let's say there's NMF, that for someone new means not my food, something that's not really on the program. And you're just kind of sneaking in there through the day. At least I'm
Yeah.
saying for myself. Will anybody notice it's my sixth
Nori,
trip out?
when I went on Brightline Eating, and all of a sudden it was like the candy dish in the workroom doesn't empty. I'm not kidding. It was embarrassing to like, the candy would just stay there because they'd have one piece and whatever. I would get a piece every time I walked in the back room.
Oh, yes. And it's so funny.
Hide the
I
rest.
actually posted this on one time. I'm like, does anybody ever notice that their leftovers last a long time? Just because I'm not having
Yeah.
third and fourth helpings.
Yeah, it was, well, right. And that's even been an adjustment with grocery shopping. I mean, we're in this weird, like having adult kids living at home thing. So they do buy food for themselves, or they get fast food, or they go out with their friends, and I'm still kind of like, there's 5 people here. I need to shop for that. And there are definitely times I'm like, oh, I just bought like way too much fruit because I'm only eating 6 ounces twice a day. I didn't need to make a 5-pound roast because they're not going to be home. And, so you're just kind of like chiseling away at it. My husband will be like, please, can I have something else for a meal? So
it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to ask you though, because, when you said that you did whole food or whole
30,
whole 30, and I haven't done that program, but I've done like the blood type program, blood type diet. And so I've done it so many times, and it's supposed to be for health. Okay. And so I know which foods are for my blood type O, and I know they're for blood type A. What kept you going back to Whole 30, and have you incorporated whatever you learned there into what you're doing now?
Some of it. I mean, I would go back to it because I felt good on it, even if I wasn't dropping a ton of weight. The first time I did it, I did 2 back-to-back because my husband did the second one with me, and that was in the spring of 2013. And I actually felt amazing. I had a ton of energy. I had lost like 25 pounds. I felt really, really good. I was sleeping great. Those are the things, because it really is, it's a diet that you take, it's an elimination diet. You take everything out that would cause inflammation. So you're feeling really good. And then you add
stuff. Just because I really have not done that.
Oh, so you take out
that one I have not done. But what are the
sugar,
things that cause inflammation?
All sugars, all grains, legumes, alcohol, dairy, soy. I think that's the 6 of things. And so when you take all of that out of your diet, you're eating a lot of lean meats and healthy fats and fruits and vegetables. And it sounds an awful lot like Brightline Eating. So there are things like I still don't eat a lot of wheat, just because I don't love how it makes me feel. I do eat a little more dairy on Brightline Eating because I can. I have rice, I have oats, but that's stuff that wouldn't be Whole 30. But it was a really healthy way to eat. But the mindset was always that day 31 was coming, and then I could have Diet Coke again, or I could have popcorn, or I could, eat
Mhm.
ice cream or cookies or whatever it was. And it
It was just
it
not
just
fit.
at the end of the day, it didn't address the brain issues for me, the food addiction.
So what are the tools that you used or you continue to use? You sent me a picture of 3 books that you use every day.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm
sure.
assuming that's from when you did the 14-day.
Well, not really. I mean, so I am a bullet journaler. So if you have never heard of that, just go to bulletjournal.com. It's just an analog way to keep your calendar in this digital world. I like to write things down. I call it my brain in a book. I write down all my lists, doctor's appointment notes, my to-do list for the day, notes about the day. I just, my calendar, my schedule, that all goes in here.
Is it like a Franklin planner or?
Not exactly, no, because it's a blank. It's blank.
Oh.
I actually write in, I make my actually draw a calendar in it, and then
Oh.
it has a separate day page for each day and stuff. And then I have my food journal. And this is just, it's just a blank notebook. And so I use this, I do my food plan for the next day. I sit down every night. I'll do it after the call tonight. I'll sit down and make my plan for tomorrow. And then I spend a couple of minutes and do some gratitude. And if I have any notes about the day, specifically pertaining to my Brightline Eating journey, then I'll write in that. And then I have my 5-year diary that every day I just wrote. Did you get one?
I just got one. Yes.
Nice.
I am so happy. I am a happy camper, except the only thing is I wish I would have gotten it sooner, but you can't go backwards.
Well, I was looking because, especially if somebody is new and they, are like, what is this really like to go on Brightline Eating? I will say on the one hand, it's been the easiest way that I've ever lost weight, ever, ever, ever. The program works. It changes lives. It just, bottom line. But on the other hand, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, because you're kind of bucking against everything that society says that you do when you get together and holidays and all of those things. And it's interesting to look back. And if you look back at, like my first couple of months, it's a lot of, I have a headache, I'm exhausted. I have a headache, I took a nap, I'm exhausted. It was such a huge change. And it was, and this is not meant to be discouraging, because every single person is different. And you and I talked about this the other night. In the first 3 months of Brightline Eating, we had a whole bunch of holidays, my 25th wedding anniversary, my birthday, and my dad died. And it was just, that was in the first 3 months, and it was really, really hard. So I kind of go, how much of the exhaustion was I feeling from grief and how much was from Brightline Eating? But it was probably 5 months, honestly. And that sounds terrible. I mean, I was halfway to getting my goal weight before I said, oh, I'm starting to feel like I have energy. I think the grief had a lot to do with that, but I was just, take naps. It's one of my biggest tips if you're just getting started. Take naps.
Actually, you know what? I felt like the Lone Ranger before you said that, because I wasn't an overnight, I've got energy. It was months. I think that I just had so much inflammation in my body.
Yeah,
I was saying, my feet were so swollen. My knee was in excruciating pain. Like I was starting to use a cane the last week before. And I couldn't even walk across the campus that I work on. And it was so much inflammation that there was pain in my body at night. I thought, this is crazy. Is this the toxins releasing? I would really suggest drinking a lot of water too.
Yeah, lots of water, going to bed early. It was I just kept everything really simple. I was exhausted. I was exhausted for 5 months. And we talk about, the brain science and how the insulin blocks leptin, and how leptin is the chemical that tells you to get up and start moving. And I can vividly remember the day that I finished my dinner and thought, I should get up and do the dishes. And I went, oh my God, this is leptin. Oh my God. It was hilarious. It was
sit back down.
Yeah, it was absolutely hysterical. But it was, that to have that energy of like, all right, you're done eating, you should get up and get some stuff done, whatever, and go fold the laundry,
I have to bring you to this point, because the other night, when we were talking about how you you talk about simple foods versus baked foods. And you were talking about how that messes with your brain, but why?
So, okay. So we were talking, Noreen had asked me one of the things, what did I take away from doing Whole30s and stuff? Because everything that I have done over the last 20 years was part of a journey to get me where I am now. And I think it's why when I encountered Brightline Eating, I was ready for it. But one of the rules kind of in Whole30 is called SWYPO, SWYPO. And cover your kids' ears. It's called Sex with Your Pants On. And the basic idea behind it is that when you tell your brain, we don't eat cookies anymore, we don't eat pancakes anymore, we don't eat waffles anymore, your brain is like, okay. And when you start replicating or trying to mimic that food with compliant ingredients, it's a lot like the difference between fumbling in the backseat of your boyfriend's car fully clothed and how much fun things when you fumble around without clothes. Your brain is always going to go, we know how much fun this is when it's the real food. And I'm not saying that you can't get to the point. Right now, I can make myself a little, muffin, or I can do a waffle that's Brightline Eating, but it took months before I would even let myself do it. That doesn't mean that's right for everybody. I'm not saying that, but drawing that line and saying it's much easier to tell my brain we don't eat waffles anymore than to try to convince my brain that this thing that I'm eating is as good as an actual waffle, because it's not. Well, it is in its own. It is in its own way now. It is in its own way now. I love the food that I eat. Every meal that I eat is satisfying and delicious. But there's just, if you talk about like the dopamine rush, and the things that you're going to get from going out for a Belgian waffle with butter and syrup and powdered sugar, it's just not the same. It's just not the same.
Well, and so here's the other thing too that I would like to add on to that, and it's because the scientific SWIPO, but here's the thing, and we talked about this the other night, using the cautionary tale of others. And for that, every once in a while in the Brightline community, some kind soul will reveal that, say, hey guys, I'm telling a cautionary tale. And then they'll proceed to tell how they fell off the ditch, fell in the ditch, gained all their weight back, and now they're climbing and trying to grab onto their bright lines. And those cautionary tales saying, okay, let me learn my lesson through you. You don't have to learn every lesson by yourself. You can observe from somebody else. Well, when you were talking about the whole SWIPO thing, it reminded me about, I make a breakfast muffin, and I have been perfectly fine with them, but I decided to make them as mini muffins for my grandchildren. And that became like a cookie fest for me. I mean, because they were tiny, and I thought I'll just try them to see if they taste exactly the same. Hello. Yeah, they did. It was the same recipe. And I thought, well, that's a one-time thing that I would have those 2 or 3, and they're little. The next few days later, they liked them so much, I made them again. The same thing happened. I'm like, now, why is it that I'm making them and they're legit for my breakfast and I don't have any problem, but I'm making them in a size that's comparable to what my nemesis was. And now they are a real problem. So that's where even, to go one step further with that, do the cautionary tale. And it's not,
I don't want anyone to think that, like, if I see you on Instagram and you made, you just started and you made a breakfast muffin or whatever, there's no judgment. Everyone is going to be different. Everyone's going to be different with this. I just know for me, I was a baker, and there just wasn't any comparison. Just because you can mix up an egg and a banana and make a pancake, it doesn't mean that it really is going to taste like what your brain recognizes as a pancake. And just the point of that is, don't make this harder on yourself than you have to. If you're just trying to mimic the foods that you got fat on, let's just be honest, you're just not, I think it's just easier to just go, I just don't eat that anymore. And I mean, I've gotten to the point, like I said, I can make really fun recipes, not that I make up, I follow them that other people make. I'm not a recipe creator. And I can do those now, but I'm just so far out. I honestly feel like there are times I've forgotten what the actual thing tastes like. I just enjoy my food and it's fine. But when I first started, I think every single morning for weeks, I had 2 hard-boiled eggs and an ounce of oatmeal cooked with an apple chopped in it with cinnamon every day, because I knew I was having exactly what the plan called for, and it was easy and it didn't trigger me in any way.
Well, I think that there is what is really about, because there is this ongoing conversation about simple foods versus baked goods, and each person is allowed their own journey.
Exactly.
Some, it's like, oh, thank goodness I have that ready. And I'm one of them that I have that ready for myself in the morning and I'm perfectly fine. But someone else may say, nope, I cannot do that. Yeah. And so that's the
so for
thing, being
me,
careful.
it just took a while before I could have something like that and feel comfortable with it, and that it wasn't just going to make me, you know, run right out and get something that I shouldn't.
So do you like rotate specific meals, or do you just keep?
It depends. I go through phases where I'll have the same thing for breakfast every day for a week at a time. And then I'll switch things up. And then I have weeks where it's like, what am I in the mood for? You know, I mean, the longer you're on this journey, the more little like kind of recipes you have or different combinations that you find that you enjoy. I definitely find there's just too many good things, you know. I love breakfast, so I'm always kind of switching that up. But I do a lot of the sweet potato bowl. I'll do oatmeal. I like the cheddar rice waffles. You know, I do that a lot. So I definitely have my favorites of things that I eat. So
I have a question for you. You've lost how much weight now?
I maintain somewhere between like 58 pounds and like 64 pounds. I'm in maintenance now, so it's a swing.
Okay, so with this swing, for someone who is either getting close to that, or, you know, this is the one thing that realizing there is a maintenance program, to me is very great, because a lot of times you get on a diet, it's like, okay, well, that's fine, but what happens when I lose the weight? So for you, was that an easy transition, or was that a little bit tricky?
It was a terrifying transition, because once you get used to the weight loss plan and you're just trucking along and you're losing weight and everything's going fine, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have to change this. For me, like I said, I was about 8 months into it and I started experiencing just the most gnawing hunger in between meals, and I was like, what is going on? I've done this for almost 8 months, and I would get hungry 10 minutes before my meal was ready. I was not having, and this was, I mean, like an hour or two after I ate, I would just be like, oh my gosh, I could chew my arm off. And so I thought, okay, about 10 pounds away from goal, which I will point out, I did not set a goal weight until I was 10 pounds away from that goal. I had no idea what my adult body was going to settle at, because I had not been a healthy weight. I weigh now what I weighed when I was 15.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, how do I want to do this? And if you look at the book, there's a weight loss, a maintenance program. And so the first thing that, I don't want to say you're supposed to do, but the first ad that the book says to add is a grain at lunch. And honestly, that really messed with me. I just was finding myself like, well, I'll just eat an extra Triscuit, you know, or whatever it was that I had. It caused a lot of food chatter in my head. And I ended up going back on weight loss for a couple of weeks. And then on Thanksgiving Day last year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this again. I need to do something about this hunger, but I'm still not quite at my goal weight, but I've got to add some more food. So what I did was, and I was kind of watching what people said on Facebook and, you know, kind of getting some ideas. I ended up adding 4 ounces of vegetables to lunch and dinner.
Wow.
And that was all I did. Everything else stayed exactly the same. But that took care of the hunger. And I waited another month before I added something else. And at that point I added a half a protein to breakfast. And then a month after that, I hit goal weight.
That's amazing. So now you have those 3 ads?
Well, I'll do like 1.5 proteins, sometimes at all 3 meals, sometimes at 2, sometimes only at 1. I mean, it really is kind of a dance. I mean, my biggest advice to anybody getting close to it is that you need to keep your lines really, really tight, because you really want to see how that ad affects you. You know, how does it make you feel? Do you feel bloated? Do you, did you, don't necessarily go by the scale, because you've got to give your body time to adjust to that extra food. And your body will adjust to that extra food. But it freaked me out at first when I tried the grain at lunch, because my weight bounced up like 3 pounds. I, was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I mean, so it was really crazy. So you just have to keep everything really, really tight.
I'm seeing a few questions here too.
Yeah, sure.
So but go. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the question is, how did you know when to stop adding things in? It was basically you got the grains.
Because I've gone through phases where I've done like 1.5 grains at breakfast, and the extra protein and the extra vegetables. But then my weight does tend to bounce up a little bit. I still don't exercise a lot. I exercised yesterday. I'm sore today. I don't do a lot. And so it really is a dance. I will tend to like, well, let me take this out for a week and just, see how I do. And then, well, now I can add this back in. Maybe it's a little more up and down than it's supposed to be. I don't know. I should probably read that part of the book again, but I just kind of float around in the middle of my weight, range.
So you're doing your best. You're really doing the maintenance dance.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is like today, this is like today I weigh 139 point something. I'm like, God, I feel chubby today. What is wrong with me? But I really feel more comfortable around like 135. But
how tall are you?
Just under 5'6".
Okay.
So I have a BMI that is like super in the healthy range. I'm like I said, I weigh what I did when I was 15, and I was this tall when 15.
That's amazing. So do you write your meals down? I think you said that you
every single night. Every single night. It takes away so much of the brain chatter, and I don't have to think about it. Most mornings I get up and I'm like, what did I plan for breakfast? I can't even remember. I don't have to remember it. It's written in my book.
That's awesome. Do you have a website or Facebook page, or is it just your Instagram?
I'm on Facebook because who isn't? But I have just my Instagram page. So
and then you're in like We Eat Right with Lines, right?
I'm in We Eat Right with Lines. I'm in the maintenance mode Facebook group. I think I'm part of the official group, but that's just a lot of posts. I don't always scroll through those a lot. I'm in the New England's Brightest. So if you're from New England, but that group is not super active.
So how do you space your meals? Have you ever incorporated intermittent fasting?
I haven't, because I love eating and I love to eat 3 times a day. So I haven't done that. The only time I did that, honestly, was right after my dad died. I had about a 10-day span where I ate twice a day, and I kind of had to make myself do it. I eat before I go to work, and then I have a lunch break at work, and I eat when I get home. So I have some shifts that are at different times. I usually, if I'm going in a little bit later, I try to eat breakfast a little bit later. I tend to, and this is something that I still struggle with a little bit, but it's so much better now, worrying that I'm going to get hungry. Hunger is not an emergency. I handle it so much better now than I used to. But that was always what if I get hungry? What if my stomach growls? Oh my gosh, what if I don't get enough? I should eat 18 candy bars before I go to work. So yeah, I still will try to. I would rather push my meal off in the morning and have it late than get to work and be like, oh, I have 4 hours until my lunch break. I'm starving. Yes. So I usually like 8 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m.
Okay. And do you drink coffee or tea?
I don't. I mean, I'll drink tea if I'm cold, but I don't really love it. And I have never been a coffee drinker. I don't like it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to switch over to, now that you've lost the weight and you're maintaining, what have you found to be your non-scale victories? And I know you had some pictures of like your wedding rings fitting again.
That was a big deal. When and I had to get them sized down. I was at size 7 when I got married. My rings were eventually, I couldn't wear them. They were a size 9 and they were too tight. And now they're a 6.5.
Wow.
So yeah, so I actually wrote down a bunch of non-scale victories, and I started this when I started Brightline Eating, so I'm just going to read a few of them. My stomach doesn't rest on the sink when I do dishes. I don't get as sweaty in hot weather. I don't have to wear a cardigan every day to cover my stomach. Clothes shopping is fun. I can cross my legs. I can fit in a bathroom stall if I'm out somewhere easier. Regular bath towels fit around me. I can wear non-wire bras. I couldn't before.
Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah, I went to my friend's house and the inner tube it actually fit around me. It was loose.
Oh my God.
My iron levels are really great. I don't have rough patches of skin on my elbows anymore. I don't go to bed hating myself every night. It just, so yeah, and there's been tons and tons of them over the last 20 months.
And you stay fairly bright, right? Or are you?
I do. I will be honest. My quantities lines is always my squidgy line. I have not had flour or sugar in almost 20 months. That is a hard line. I don't want to come across like I'm living in fear, but I'm terrified that if I ever had some, I would not be able to stop. And so I just do not let myself have it. I have had a couple of snacks, stuff when I wasn't supposed to, but for the most part, I do not snack at all. But the quantities line, that's the one that gets me an extra ounce of fruit at breakfast or a little extra protein, or, even with the maintenance ads, I'm a little loosey-goosey with that sometimes. I don't recommend it, but.
So what do you say to yourself as a heart-to-heart? I've started to have some heart-to-hearts with myself when I wanted to go down the snack line. And there's a real realization. Actually, last night, Susan Pierce Thompson, the author of Brightline Eating, for those who are new, she had a question, something like, what did your old life, what was the cost to that?
Yeah.
Of eating like that?
Oh, yeah.
So what was that for you? What did that take away from you? I know it is really all a part of your journey to get you to today.
It is, but I mean, even now it's the peace of mind, when I say, if I do go off a little bit. Okay. So here, like, full confession, I'm just going to, earlier this summer, we bought an air fryer and I was like, well, I have to buy some frozen French fries because the family's going to want them. I have to see what they taste like. And that started me on like a 2-month thing of every chance I got, I was eating French fries. Oh, it's a grain. I can have it. I'm in maintenance. I mean, I have every excuse in the book. And then I was going to bed and I said to myself, tomorrow I won't have any. And I went, what are you doing? This is what you did for 20 years. Tomorrow I'll start. Tomorrow I'll be good. Tomorrow I'll exercise. Tomorrow I'll have a healthy breakfast. And I was like, no, full stop. You cannot do this. You cannot go back to that. And that's really what it is. I mean, do I want to gain weight again? No, absolutely I don't. But even more than that, I don't want that mental chatter. It's so much easier to just say, no, I don't have that anymore. And so I had to kind of slap myself around a little bit. Like, what are you doing, girl? Stop it. And I will have conversations with myself where I have to sit there and go, Amanda. And in fact, what happened last week, my husband brought home frozen French fries. We'd had a conversation. I said, hon, I can't have them in the house. I love you. I can't. And he forgot and went and got some. And he made his dinner and I took all the rest of them and threw them away, opened the packages and dumped them in the garbage, and had to literally talk myself through it. Just get rid of them. You do not want to eat them, and sometimes you just have to do that little tough love with yourself.
Yes, very true. I would have to say the same thing. One thing that I do, or I started way back, was because I had so much secrecy about some of the food that I was eating.
Yep.
I promised myself I would tell my husband, honey, I had something.
Oh gosh. Steve and I are
now
enablers of each other. Yeah. We were
he
more
doesn't know that. He didn't know before. I mean, I'm sure he was guessing, but no, I had a whatever.
But we were big, like, oh, you're in the mood for this? All right, I'll run out and go get it. And we would do it for each other. My husband has, like, I mean, he had a weight problem for like maybe a day, and he's almost 55. So it's not, he's always been really slim. And, he's not as high on the susceptibility scale. I haven't had him take it, but I just know because I've been married to him for 26 years. And yeah, no, I hid a lot of food from him.
Yeah.
I hid a lot of, I mean, my family was, some of the stuff when I think about it now, I just go, oh my gosh, like what, but I mean, my kids grew up, they knew if there was a special treat in the house, you better not eat the last one. Because if mom goes to have something and there's not one there, like there's going to be hell to pay. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like that is stuff like that my kids just knew. Like you don't eat the last cookie, you don't, and I just go, oh my gosh, it really controlled a lot of my brain space.
Right. And as far as you're saying about the brain space, there's a part in Susan's book that says you're running the numbers. Oh my goodness. That was me. I'm either running calories or carbs or macros or minutes of exercise or something, or how many of those things are in the workroom. It's like all day long, these numbers in my head of where I was with my certain program I was on.
Right. And you can
throw
out a year and I'll be like, oh, I was doing this program and this is about how much I weighed.
Yeah. So we're getting really close here to the end of this, Amanda. I can't believe it. But there's somebody here today, I know, that they're looking at you and like, you did it. You actually did it.
No one is more surprised than me.
What can you say? What can you say? What advice or what would you say right now about, I'm on the verge, I don't know if I have it in me to do this? What is your thought about that?
Do it. It will change your life and it will get easier as time goes on. It's one meal at a time. Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time. Like I said, take naps, be kind to yourself, but it can change your life. If you had told me 21 months ago that this is where I would be now, I would laugh at you. I would have been like, yeah, that's hilarious. No one is more surprised than me every day when I look in the mirror. It's been completely life-changing. And it really does work. Just follow the plan. Don't try to, well, what if I do this? And what if I do that? What if I do this? What if I make this change? Just follow it, lean into it, trust it. It works. And you will feel so much better. Even if you don't have to lose the weight fast. The peace of mind that comes with just going, it's just so steady. It's just, I can't say enough good things about it, but it works. It really works. And the people I've met have been amazing. The Instagram community is just phenomenal. Everyone on Facebook has just been so kind and supportive. And it's just a wonderful group of people. And, you fall down, you get back up. Mm-hmm. It's just, it really works. And I just can't say enough how different my life is. And all the good things are still good, but I feel so much more comfortable in my own skin. I feel so much more quiet in my brain. It's awesome.
It's like you can now live your life without worrying about all of that.
Yeah.
And what just occurred to me right now is in the conversation you mentioned, and when we talked the other day, that you had said your dad was a little bit overweight before he passed away. Mm-hmm. Don't you think he'd just be so proud of you?
Oh, absolutely. I really wish that he and I had talked about Brightline Eating. He had done things before. He'd been vegetarian. He'd done things with he would do no, get rid of all the whites, white sugar, white flour, white rice. He would do things like that. And of course he was a guy. So then he'd start exercising. He'd drop 40 pounds in, a month and a half. But yeah, I think he would be really proud of me. And yeah, I wish that I think he would have found her book absolutely fascinating. Yeah. And so there's a part of me that's really sad that I didn't share it with him because I was still too new. I didn't really want to talk about it. But yeah.
I think that you had to get that power within you, that's how I felt. I had to like really have the power within me before that I could even share it. Because
even
I had
just being
tried
able-
so many things. Go ahead.
Well, I was so excited about it. I really was talking to my friends about it and telling them all about the science and, you know, what I was eating. And I mean, I was talking about that. I just didn't want to do one more thing that I failed.
Right.
And I think it's just harder sometimes with family, you know, and I think I just needed to get a little success under my belt before and practice saying no to things.
Yes.
You know, my poor mom, to this day, when I go to her house, and she would cook me anything. She's the best mom. But I'm like, I packed my lunch, Mom. It's fine. I still, she cooks for everyone else. And I just unpack my lunch and have whatever I brought. You know, she'll say, but I have this, I have that. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't write that down last night. So I'm going to eat what I brought.
I have not had that courage to do that. But you know what? It would not bother me if somebody was on a special program, you know, to bring their own scale or bring their own lunch. I think I have one more thing. Somebody just said they have an extra scale at their mom's house.
I just saw Allie's comment pop up.
So
Allie, that's actually genius.
Really
I really should leave one at my mom's house.
So, you know, I could read note after note about just you're great, you're awesome, you're fantastic on Instagram, great friend, inspirational, and I want to just say that 100 times to you too.
Thank you.
Like, you know, when I jumped on the We Eat Right with Lines, I know that yours was one that I followed. There were just so many people, and for you to come and share your story and your success and your struggles, it's all of that. It's life.
Yeah. My friends have a hard time getting me to shut up about Brightline Eating, quite frankly. So this was my pleasure.
Well, I hope that we can do this again, maybe in the next year, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have my 2-year anniversary in March, so I'm excited to see.
2 years in March. That's fantastic. You know, I was just thinking one thing when I started to do the Zoom chats, I got back with my friend Lori, and I said, Lori, I don't know how many people will come. So I'm just wondering how many people private messaged you that day when you posted on Facebook. And she said, you know, when I zoomed over and I asked her and she says, Noreen, you were the only one. I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I think, you know what? No matter what, as long as you are trying, you know, that's the only thing you can do is one day at a time. Then here's a thank you. Amanda, you're my hero comes up. You know, I'm speaking now to everybody here. You can do this. You are strong enough. You're worthy enough. You're loving enough. You're lovable enough. You're smart enough. You're strong enough. And you are designed to do more than worry about your weight.
Yes, yes.
When you get that taken care of, you're going to have this joy that just shines through like Amanda. You are enough. You are enough to do this, and you are so worth it. And so with that, Amanda, thank you again. If anybody wants to unmute their phones, they can. And I'm going to say good night as I do every time. Good night, stay bright, and don't let the bed bugs bite. So good night. And next week, we're going to have Shauna Keel-Murph here. So thanks again, Amanda.
Yeah, you're welcome.